you think of self-help, how much of that do you get just from your faith and that community as opposed to what you might glean from a self-help book?
My faith is central to
Yeah.
me, but I'm not this rigorously
Right.
religious
Sure.
person or anything like that. But I do love my faith, and I've used it to sharpen
Hmm.
the way that I see things. And so, whatever the item is, kind of looking through that lens of what do I really think this is? Like, I know that I'm meant to be me
Hmm.
and not be someone else.
Right.
And that's part of that's just a beautiful understanding that each of us has our own dignity and it's God given.
Hmm.
And so I want to respect that part. And so that's central to me. And so if I want to be respected just for being me, I also, in turn, have to be respectful of another person being themselves.
Hmm.
And so what it does is it really encourages me to be myself and encourage others to be themselves.
Yeah.
So there's this healthy environment right out of the gate, and so that influences most everything I do. I don't believe that my role is to take principles of my faith
Hmm.
and then go impose them upon other people.
Right.
I just use them to sharpen the way that I behave. Like, I'm not out there preaching, and
Hmm.
that's not my role. That's not my vocation.
Hmm.
I just like to live my life in the way that I believe is right, and then I want to own the things that I do that I know that I do wrong,
Hmm.
and I want to continuously work on myself. But I'm not trying to promote a certain religion or anything.
And I've heard you say before that sometimes people expect you to regulate their emotions.
I can't do that for an adult.
Right.
That external outsourcing of that regulation is a dangerous road to go on. Now, in an extreme situation, of course, but if the relationship relies on me being the regulator,
Yeah.
we have to remember that's a moving target. How someone feels changes moment to moment,
Right.
and so if that's the leading piece, that's going to be a problem. Well, it's really interesting. There's three root sins in Christianity. There's pride, vanity, and sensuality.
Hmm.
And sensuality is the way that I feel. And I've a lot of relationship issues that I face, regardless of the type of relationship, is tied to how someone feels,
Hmm.
and them to outsource their emotional regulator. Now, they would be insulted to hear that that's what they're doing,
Hmm.
but that's what they're doing, and that's not because they're bad. It just shows that there's a deeper issue there,
Hmm.
and if you don't feel safe, that's what happens. But if you look at blaming and all that finger pointing, a lot of that is tied to that emotional regulation, where we would appreciate knowing that we're in control of
Hmm.
how we feel in that situation. That you can't put me in a bad mood because I'm going to regulate emotionally, um, and go into a bad mood if I want to.
Hmm.
I want to be triggered less. I want to be more in control of that. Just because someone says something that's not true doesn't mean I need to get all upset about it.
Hmm. Can you give me another example of that?
Okay, so I recently had a conversation with someone. They were frustrated that I wasn't responding in a highly emotional way back.
Hmm.
And I don't want to be critical of it because this is just kind of what they believe that they needed in the
Yeah.
moment. And so it's going a little bit back and forth, but I was not going to move off of my boundary.
Hmm.
My boundary was that I'm not going to let you outsource the way that you feel onto me, that
Hmm.
I should have changed. Like, my behavior should change because
Hmm.
you're upset. The person said, if I'm upset, I don't care if you just tell me, hey, I understand where you're coming from,
Hmm.
you're right, and all that. And then later on, tell me that that was a lie, but just because of the situation.
Yeah.
And at first, it's like, you want me to lie? That was unfathomable. But the person said yes. And I was like, wow. So it's not a problem. It just shows how important to her the emotional side of it
Yeah.
was. Like, emotional safety trumped the truth.
Hmm.
That's not the best environment for me, because that puts me in a spot where, all right, how are you feeling on this? Okay, let me modify, and that leads to me walking on eggshells. And if
Hmm.
you know anything about me, I'm not meant to walk on eggshells. Situationally, I can pull it off, but that can't be a theme that we are chasing, avoiding somebody being upset. It's like, what caused you to be upset? And is that even valid? So there's no space for it. Like, the only thing, it's an emergency.
Hmm.
We must make me feel like I'm safe, and then we can have more of a logical conversation.
Hmm.
And it just doesn't work that way. You can't outsource that to me. I don't know what you're really feeling. I know what you're saying, but how many times are we saying exactly how we feel?
Hmm.
And then the logic that you're applying, who's saying that that's sound logic?
Hmm.
Maybe you should be upset. Maybe the item is worthy of it, but maybe you shouldn't be upset.
Hmm.
Maybe the item wasn't worthy and you're blowing it out of proportion. So if someone's not willing to make that pause and leave space for, maybe I misinterpreted it.
Mm.
Maybe I'm making a big deal out of nothing. Maybe the other
Hmm.
person just needs grace. Maybe the other person just made a mistake.
Hmm.
Maybe it could be all these other things, but to zone it in on, you have to change behavior, you have to do this, and you have to do this. Otherwise, that's a problem and you're doing something wrong. I would not let it happen, not even 1 degree.
Hmm.
1 degree. I could have made the whole problem go away just by accepting it. I wouldn't do it.
Hmm.
And I felt really good about that.
So what did you do?
I held my ground. And it wasn't that I was being difficult, it was just that I would not allow, no matter which way the situation got
Hmm.
presented to me, it was you said this and you said that, and taking things out of context and all of that. I tried to not get frustrated, even though it's a frustrating experience. I kept looking at it and saying, hey, this person is struggling with this and they don't feel safe.
Hmm.
And I actually made the comment, like, it's clear, it's like, you don't make me feel safe. I
Hmm.
was like, now you're not safe around me. And then I stood
Yeah.
up like, I'll walk, right? You're
Yeah.
not going to be throwing these things at me and saying these kinds of things um, that are not true. Or well, maybe they've made them true in their mind,
Yeah.
but that doesn't belong. It's not fitting. And again, we go back to, that's where it's, hey, boundaries are really important to follow. When you know something is going to be a problem, and having a line and drawing that line, it's really good to keep that intact.
So how did it all work out?
Well, it depends on on your point of view on it. Like for me, I was really proud of it.
Yeah.
I was proud of being able to hold the line, even though I saw somebody that was struggling and upset. Uh, but if I wanted to lead, in this piece, I would be the leader. For me to lead in that and to respect and appreciate where they're coming from
Hmm.
without giving up, like it was not going to be a compromise so that there was resolution. It was going to be, I'm not going 1 degree off.
Hmm.
This is at the launch, and I'm not going to be pointed in the wrong direction. And so the relationship ran its course, and that ended. I felt really good about that because the person is great, and I was able to hold my ground and say, "Hey, this is what I'm looking
Hmm.
for," and respecting that. Hey, that's just the way that it is, and I was going to be unbending in that. Very few things I'm unbending in, but that was going to be an unbender. But the bigger part of this conversation is around how self-help without guidance can be dangerous.
Hmm.
And the point is that if someone goes out there and gets better armed with information, and they're situated in a spot where now they could use this
Yeah.
to weaponize it against someone else, it's a problem. If they haven't gained the context and the mastery of the tool, putting the tool in their hands could be very destructive.
Hmm.
This happens a lot with scripture. People use scripture against a person and they wonder why the person runs further away from the faith. You have to use it for them. And so, this insight, these tools are oftentimes coming into somebody as a raw weapon,
Hmm.
and they get fine tuned by interacting with someone else, like that inner circle. Do you have a spiritual director or a therapist that you're able to work through those topics with? You're able to harness that weapon and use it for good, and that's when it's really really solid. Too many times it doesn't happen like that.
I've heard you say this, several times over the time that I've known you, is that vocabulary without wisdom is dangerous.
Yes, words are powerful. If they get in the hands of somebody that's going to misuse them, they could do a lot of damage.